Commander Frank Miller floated in the observation deck of Earth Defense Station Alpha, his eyes fixed on the strange object on the screen. It wasn't a comet or asteroid. Its movements were too precise, too intentional. "How long has it been there?" Frank asked, his voice low. Lieutenant Gina Powell checked her tablet. "Satellite first detected it 3 days ago at the edge of Pluto's orbit. It's been moving slowly inward since then." Frank nodded. This was it. After decades of searching the stars, proof they weren't alone had arrived at humanity's doorstep. "Get me a direct line to Dr. Wright and Dr. Carter at NASA," he ordered. "And alert command. We have a visitor." Within 12 hours, the brightest minds on Earth were studying the signals coming from the alien probe. Dr. Olivia Wright hadn't slept in 36 hours, but her eyes remained sharp as she analyzed patterns in the transmission. "It's a language," she told her colleague, Daniel Carter. "Look at these repeating sequences. They're trying different communication systems, hoping we'll recognize one." Daniel scratched his beard. "It's like they're flipping through a galactic dictionary, trying every language they know." On the third day, they cracked it. The alien probe was broadcasting a simple message: "We come in peace. Prepare for arrival." 1 week later, a ship the size of a football stadium settled into orbit around Earth. The world watched as a smaller craft descended to the United Nations headquarters in New York. Frank stood at attention as the craft's doors slid open. The being that emerged wasn't what anyone expected. It looked like a walking crystal, with facets that caught and reflected light in rainbow patterns. It stood on 4 limbs, with 2 more extended in what seemed like a greeting. "I am Zixtal," the being spoke, its voice coming from a small device at what might be its neck. "Ambassador of the Galactic Council. I bring greetings to the people of Earth." The world leaders gathered in the room sat in stunned silence. The President of the United States finally stood. "We welcome you to Earth. I speak for all humanity when I say we are honored by your visit." Zixtal's crystal body shimmered. "The Council has observed your world for many cycles. Your species has reached a technological threshold that qualifies you for consideration into the galactic community." Frank, standing guard at the wall, felt his heart race. Humanity wasn't just meeting aliens. They were being invited to join them. However, Zixtal continued, "All new species must prove their worthiness. The Council requires assurance that humans will contribute positively to our collective." The meetings continued for days. Questions about Earth's culture, science, and politics were answered eagerly by human representatives. Then came the topic of military capability. "Commander Miller," the President called, "please brief our guest on Earth's defense systems." Frank stepped forward, choosing his words carefully. "Our planet maintains several armed forces. We have weapons capable of planetary destruction, though we've agreed never to use them. Our military forces are primarily for protection and peacekeeping." Zixtal made a sound like tinkling glass, apparently laughter. "Your weapons are primitive by Council standards. Your ships cannot even leave your solar system efficiently." Frank felt his face grow warm. "What we lack in technology, we make up for in strategy and determination." "An admirable sentiment," Zixtal replied. "But the galaxy is a dangerous place. Some species would see yours as easy prey." "We've never been easy prey," Frank said firmly. "Humans have never lost a war when our survival was at stake." Zixtal's crystalline body pulsed with light. Bold words. "The Council will test this claim. We offer humanity a chance to prove itself through trial by combat, not with weapons, but with tactics and strategy." The room erupted in murmurs. The President raised a hand for silence. "What would this trial involve?" she asked. "You will face the Krell, our most accomplished warrior race, in a series of simulated conflicts. Success will grant you full Council membership. Failure—" Zixtal paused. "Failure means probationary status under Krell supervision." Frank stepped forward again. "We accept your challenge." What the Crystal Ambassador didn't understand, what no alien could possibly know, was humanity's greatest strength. Unlike the unified species of the Galactic Council, humans had been fighting each other for thousands of years. War wasn't theoretical to them. It was in their history, their literature, their nightmares. As Dixtal returned to his ship, Frank stared at the stars. The real test wasn't about to begin. It had started the first time human fought human, and everything since had been preparation for this moment. Admiral Susan Coleman stood in the large meeting room at Earth Defense Headquarters, looking at the four people seated at the table. These were Earth's champions, selected from thousands of candidates worldwide. The fate of humanity rested on their shoulders. "You've all been briefed on why you're here," Susan said. "The Galactic Council has challenged us to a trial by combat against an alien race called the Krell." John Winters, a Marine with 15 years of combat experience, leaned forward. "What exactly are we fighting, ma'am? Are these trials to the death?" Susan shook her head. "The trials use non-lethal weapons and advanced simulation technology. Think of it as the most realistic war game ever created." Kate Rodriguez, a Navy pilot with the fastest reflexes in the fleet, crossed her arms. "So we're playing a video game against aliens. A bit more complex than that," Susan replied. "The environments are partly real, partly virtual. Your actions have consequences, but no one dies." Sam Phillips, the Army's top strategist, was already taking notes. "What do we know about Krell tactics?" "Very little," Susan admitted. "The Council provided basic information only. The Krell have won these trials for the past 300 years. No new species has defeated them." Ben Howell, an intelligence officer known for thinking outside the box, smiled slightly. "Then they're due for a loss." The team spent the next week studying what little they knew about the Krell and preparing for any scenario. They trained together in Earth's most advanced combat simulators, learning to work as a unit. On the day of the first trial, they were taken to the Galactic Council's ship in orbit. The chamber they entered was enormous, with walls that seemed to shift and change like living metal. A tall, muscular alien with gray skin and 4 yellow eyes approached them. His body was covered in natural armor plates, and he moved with the grace of a predator. "I am General Korg of the Krell," he said through a translator device. "We welcome you to your first defeat." John stepped forward, matching the alien's stance. "We'll see about that." Korg looked down at the human, amused by his confidence. "Your species is young. You have not yet learned your place in the galaxy. The Krell will teach you." Susan kept her expression neutral. "We're ready for the trial, General." The arena transformed around them into a rugged mountain landscape. Each team member found themselves equipped with weapons that fired energy markers instead of bullets. The objective was simple: capture the enemy's flag while defending your own. From the beginning, the humans were outmatched. The Krell moved with incredible speed and coordination. They seemed to anticipate every human move, countering each strategy before it could develop. Kate's aerial maneuvers, which had baffled human opponents, were easily predicted by the Krell. Sam's carefully planned ambushes found empty terrain. John and Ben found themselves constantly on the defensive. Within an hour, the Krell had captured the human flag 3 times. The trial ended with a decisive alien victory. Back in their quarters, the team sat in dejected silence. Susan paced the room, replaying the battle in her mind. "They knew what we were going to do before we did it," Kate said, frustration clear in her voice. "No," Susan said suddenly. "They didn't predict our moves. They recognized them." She turned to face her team. "Did you notice how perfect their formations were? How textbook their maneuvers?" Sam's eyes widened with understanding. They'd fought these battles before. "Many times." "Exactly," Susan said. "The Krell don't adapt because they've never needed to. Their strategies have worked for 300 years against every new species." Ben leaned forward. "So they're experienced, but inflexible." Susan nodded. "And what's the one thing humans have always excelled at in warfare?" John smiled for the first time since their defeat. "Adaptation." Susan looked at each team member. The Krell fight wars like they're playing chess, with fixed rules and predetermined moves. But humans, she paused. Humans flip the board when they're losing. Kate's eyes lit up. So we changed the game. Precisely, Susan said. The Krell have never faced a species like ours, one that has spent its entire history fighting itself. We know what it means to face an enemy who thinks like we do. The Krell don't. For the first time since meeting the aliens, the humans felt a spark of hope. They hadn't just lost a battle. They had learned how to win the war. The human team gathered in their quarters aboard the Galactic Council ship. 3 days remained before their next match against the Krell. 3 days to figure out how to defeat an enemy that had never lost. Kate paced the room, her mind racing. There has to be something we're missing. Some weakness we can exploit. Sam sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by holographic displays showing recordings of their defeat. Look here, he said, pointing to a formation of Krell warriors. This attack pattern. It's identical to an ancient Earth tactic called the hammer and anvil. John leaned in. That's a maneuver Alexander the Great used over 2,000 years ago. Exactly, Sam nodded. And here, when they defended their flag, that's a classic phalanx formation. Ben had been quiet, analyzing data on his tablet. Now he looked up. I've been studying council records they gave us access to. None of the species in the Galactic Council has experienced civil war or internal conflict for thousands of years. What do you mean? Susan asked. I mean they've evolved past it, Ben explained. Once each species unified their planet, they stopped fighting among themselves. Some haven't had a war in over 10,000 years. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. So they only fight these trials, Kate said slowly. They only fight other species, never their own kind. And always with the same rules, John added. No wonder the Krell use ancient tactics. They've never had to develop new ones. Susan stood up, energy in her movements. This changes everything. The Krell might be physically stronger, but they lack what humans have developed through millennia of conflict, creativity in chaos. Sam began adjusting his tactical displays. If they're using textbook strategies, we need to throw away the textbook. For the next 3 days, the team worked tirelessly. They studied every moment of their defeat, identifying patterns in Krell behavior. John and Ben focused on finding weaknesses in their formations. Kate developed unpredictable flight patterns. Sam created strategies that would appear illogical, but had hidden purpose. On the night before their second match, Susan gathered the team one last time. Tomorrow, we do what humans have always done when faced with superior forces, she said. We adapt. We improvise. We overcome. The next morning, General Korg greeted them with the same confident stance. Have you prepared your surrender speech, humans? John just smiled. We're ready to begin. This time, the battlefield was a dense urban environment. Buildings of various heights created a maze of streets and alleys. The Krell immediately moved into their standard formation, a disciplined line advancing through the main avenue. But the humans were nowhere to be found. Korg ordered his warriors to secure the tallest building, following the same strategy that had worked for centuries. As they reached the roof, sensors indicated they had captured the position, but there was no human flag. Meanwhile, Kate flew her simulated aircraft in ways that defied conventional tactics. She skimmed buildings, made impossible turns, and flew patterns that seemed random but were designed to confuse the Krell's organized approach. Below, John and Ben had split up, moving as individuals rather than a unit. They left false trails and decoys, drawing Krell warriors into empty buildings. Sam had hidden their flag in the last place the Krell would look, underground, in a maintenance tunnel beneath the largest building, the very building the Krell were currently occupying. As the aliens followed their practiced strategies, searching methodically from top to bottom, John slipped through their defenses. He entered the Krell's command post, which they had left with minimal protection, confident in their superior position. The Krell flag was there, guarded by 2 warriors. John didn't engage them directly. Instead, he triggered the building's fire suppression system, creating confusion. In the chaos, he grabbed the flag and escaped through a maintenance shaft. By the time Korg realized what was happening, it was too late. The humans had won the round. The Krell general stared at the humans with new respect and alarm. That was unorthodox. Susan nodded. That was human. The victory celebration in the human quarters was brief. They had won a battle, not the war. The Krell would adapt, and the humans needed to stay one step ahead. They'll be expecting our tricks now, Susan warned. We need something new for the next round. Ben had been studying the data from their victory. The Krell were completely thrown by our individual actions. They fight as a unit and expect enemies to do the same. So we continue being unpredictable, John said. Kate smiled. I found something interesting during the last match. The simulation has limits, things the programmers never expected anyone to try. She pulled up a holographic display showing her flight path during the battle. At certain points, the line became dotted. See these spots? The system couldn't properly track some of my maneuvers. The physics engine has blind spots. Sam's eyes widened. You're saying we can exploit glitches in the simulation itself? Exactly, Kate nodded. These trials were designed with certain assumptions about how combat works. We can break those assumptions. The next day, General Korg approached them before the third match. His yellow eyes narrowed with suspicion. Your tactics yesterday violated traditional combat doctrine, he said. The Council is reviewing the match for possible cheating. Susan stepped forward. We followed all the rules of engagement. Nothing in the guidelines says we have to fight according to your expectations. Korg's armor plates shifted in what might have been a shrug. The review found no violations. But know this, we have studied your methods now. The same tricks will not work twice. The battlefield this time was an archipelago of small islands connected by bridges. Each team started on opposite ends of the map, with the objective to control the central island. As predicted, the Krell had adjusted their approach. Instead of a single unit, they split into smaller teams, mimicking the human tactic from the previous battle. They're learning, Sam observed, but they're still thinking like Krell. Susan nodded. Execute countermeasure Alpha. The human team appeared to split up, heading toward different islands. The Krell forces divided further to intercept them, but it was a feint. John deliberately allowed himself to be spotted, drawing Krell forces to the northern islands. He fought defensively, retreating just enough to keep their attention without being captured. Meanwhile, Sam had discovered that the simulation treated underwater movement differently than land or air. The system assumed no combatant would abandon the islands to swim. While the Krell focused on controlling the bridges, Sam moved underwater, bypassing their defenses entirely. Kate pushed her simulated aircraft to its limits, finding more gaps in the physics engine. In one maneuver, she flew so close to the water that the system couldn't determine if she was flying or swimming. This confusion created a momentary blind spot she used to deliver Ben past a Krell checkpoint. The Krell fought well, adapting their formations and responding to the humans' visible movements. But they couldn't counter what they couldn't predict. By mid-battle, the humans had sacrificed several positions strategically, making it appear they were losing ground. The Krell forces concentrated on what they thought was the humans' last stand. That's when Ben activated the trap. The seemingly abandoned positions had been rigged with virtual markers that, when triggered by the Krell, created a chain reaction. The simulation registered multiple simultaneous captures by the human team. While the Krell were processing this unexpected development, Susan led a direct assault on the central island. The Krell defenders were caught between responding to the marker activations and defending against this new threat. The match ended with humans controlling the central island and 3 satellite positions. Another victory. General Korg was visibly agitated. His armor plates clicked rapidly as he confronted the human team. This is not how war is fought. He protested. You sacrifice positions that should be defended. You ignore valuable targets to seize seemingly worthless ones. Your movements make no tactical sense. Susan looked directly into his 4 yellow eyes. That's because you're looking for patterns that aren't there. Humans don't fight wars by following a script. We adapt to survive. For the first time, she saw something new in the alien general's expression. It wasn't just frustration. It was fear. 2 victories against the undefeated Krell had caught the attention of the entire Galactic Council. Alien observers from dozens of species now watched each match with growing interest. The human team had become unexpected celebrities. We need to push our advantage, Susan told her team as they prepared for the 4th match. The Krell are rattled, but they're still dangerous. Ben had spent the night analyzing council communications. The Krell aren't just fighting for victory anymore. They're fighting for their reputation. That makes them vulnerable to psychological tactics. Sam nodded thoughtfully. In human wars, morale is often as important as firepower. Then let's attack their morale, Susan decided. Before the next match, John approached several council members from different species. He shared stories of human battles throughout history, emphasizing how often smaller forces had defeated larger ones through creative thinking. The Spartans at Thermopylae held off a massive Persian army with just 300 warriors. He told an impressed group of aliens, not because they were stronger, but because they used the terrain to their advantage. Meanwhile, Kate spoke with the technical staff who maintained the simulation systems. She asked innocent questions about how different weapons worked, deliberately dropping hints about human strategies they hadn't yet used. News of these conversations reached the Krell. Ben made sure of it. When the 4th match began, the battlefield was a dense forest with limited visibility. The Krell had prepared for every tactic the humans had used previously. They had counters for underwater movement, for exploiting simulation glitches, for sacrificial positions. What they weren't prepared for was simplicity. Instead of complex maneuvers, the humans used the oldest strategy in their history. They hid. Using the forest's natural cover, they became invisible to Krell sensors. When the Krell sent scouts to find them, the humans allowed themselves to be spotted in different locations, creating confusion about their true members. They can't be everywhere at once, a Krell commander complained. Neither can we, his superior responded. Focus on the central clearing. That's where they must be heading. The Krell concentrated their forces to defend the high-value target. They set traps along every approach path, prepared for any attack formation the humans might use. But the humans never came. Instead, Sam had identified that the victory conditions didn't actually require capturing the central clearing. The rules stated that whichever team controlled the majority of the forest at the end of the time limit would win. While the Krell defended their position, the humans quietly spread throughout the rest of the forest. They placed small markers at strategic points, each one claiming territory without drawing attention. By the time the Krell realized what was happening, it was too late. The match ended with humans controlling 62% of the battlefield. Another victory. The Krell were furious. General Korg stormed into the debriefing room. "You did not even fight," he shouted. "Where is the honor in hiding like prey animals?" Susan remained calm. The objective was to control territory, not to engage in direct combat. We achieved that objective. This is not war, Korg insisted. Actually, Ben said quietly, this is exactly how humans have fought wars when outnumbered or outgunned. We call it asymmetric warfare. Victory isn't about who's strongest. It's about who accomplishes their goals. The human team now led the series 3-1. One more victory would secure their success in the trial by combat and guarantee Earth's place in the Galactic Council. Word spread quickly through the council ship. The unbeatable Krell were on the verge of defeat. Many alien species began to look at the humans with new respect, and some with concern. That evening, an aide informed Susan that the final matches would be overseen by a special observer. The Supreme Krell Warlord, Vrax, was coming personally to witness the competition. They're bringing in their biggest gun, John said when he heard the news. Susan nodded, which means our next match will be the hardest yet. The Krell won't just be fighting to win. They'll be fighting for their place in the galactic order. Kate smiled confidently. So are we. Warlord Vrax was unlike any Krell the humans had seen before. Standing nearly 8 feet tall, his gray skin was covered with elaborate scarring that Susan recognized as battle honors. His yellow eyes seemed to glow with intensity as he studied the human team. So these are the creatures who have embarrassed our finest warriors, Vrax said, his translator making his deep voice sound almost musical. You are smaller than I expected. John stepped forward, meeting the warlord's gaze. Size isn't everything in battle. Vrax made a sound that might have been laughter. Perhaps not. But experience is. I have personally led 117 conquest campaigns across the galaxy. How many wars have you fought, human? Just the ones that mattered, John replied. The warlord turned to address the gathered council members. I have reviewed these matches. The humans have employed unusual tactics. For the 5th match, I will personally select the battlefield and command the Krell forces. Susan felt a chill. This was a new development, and not in their favor. The battlefield Vrax chose was a barren plain with nowhere to hide, no water for underwater movement, no buildings to use for cover, no forests to disappear into. Just open ground with small ridges and shallow trenches. Traditional battlefield, Sam muttered. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Just strength against strength. Kate looked concerned. He's neutralized all our previous advantages. Then we find new ones, Susan said firmly. As the match began, the human team took defensive positions behind a ridge. The Krell force, now under Vrax's command, did something unexpected. They spread out in a seemingly random pattern. They're not using standard formations, Ben observed with alarm. On the command channel, they heard Vrax's voice. You are not the only ones who can adapt, humans. I have studied your methods. You exploit patterns and predictability. So today, my warriors will act with calculated randomness. Susan watched as the Krell forces advanced. Each warrior moved independently, changing direction at irregular intervals. There was no formation to exploit, no pattern to predict. He's mimicking our approach, Sam said, but with more warriors and better equipment. For the first time, the humans found themselves truly on the defensive. Krell warriors appeared from unexpected angles. Their attacks came in irregular waves rather than coordinated assaults. John was captured early in the battle when 3 Krell attacked from different directions simultaneously. Kate's aerial maneuvers were countered by Krell flyers who seemed to ignore their own flight doctrine. By mid-battle, the humans were losing ground rapidly. The score indicators showed the Krell with a significant advantage. We need to regroup, Susan ordered, pulling her remaining team members back to their starting position. Ben looked grim. Vrax is beating us at our own game. Susan stared across the battlefield, watching the Krell movements carefully. Then she noticed something. No, he's not, she said slowly. Look closely. The randomness has a pattern. He's creating the appearance of chaos, but it's actually coordinated. Sam studied the battlefield display. You're right. The movements seem random individually, but collectively, they're forming a net. They're still thinking as a group, just disguising it better. And that's their weakness, Susan said. They're simulating individual action, but they're not truly independent. Real human warfare is messier than this. With renewed determination, Susan outlined a desperate plan. Instead of trying to counter the Krell strategy, they would ignore it entirely. The 3 remaining humans would each select a single high-value target and focus exclusively on that objective, regardless of what happened elsewhere. Complete commitment to individual goals, Susan explained. No coordination between us at all. The plan was risky. By abandoning team tactics entirely, they would certainly lose some objectives, but they might win others through sheer determination. The battle resumed. Sam charged directly toward the Krell command post. ignoring all other targets. Ben focused on capturing a series of small outposts, accumulating points steadily. Susan engaged Vrax himself, drawing the warlord's attention. The Krell forces struggled to respond to 3 completely independent threats. Their pseudo-random movements, still secretly coordinated, couldn't adapt quickly enough. When the match ended, the score was remarkably close. But the Krell had won. Vrax approached the defeated humans, his posture triumphant but respectful. "A worthy contest," he said. "The series now stands at 3-2. You have 2 matches remaining to prove your species' worth." Susan nodded, already planning their next move. The loss stung, but they had learned something crucial. Even when trying to be unpredictable, the Krell still fought as a collective. Humans, with their long history of individual action, still had an advantage. They just needed to push it further. After their first defeat, the human team gathered in their quarters to regroup. The mood was tense but determined. They had come too far to give up now. "Vrax is good," John admitted. "Better than any commander we faced." "He's still Krell," Susan reminded them. "And we still have our advantage." A message alert chimed. Commander Frank Miller, who had remained on Earth as their liaison, was calling. Susan accepted the transmission. Frank's holographic image appeared in the center of the room. "I heard about the match. How are you holding up?" Susan gave him a quick summary of their situation. "Vrax has studied our tactics. He's learning to think like us." Frank nodded thoughtfully. "Then you need to think even more like humans. I'm sending you something that might help." The transmission ended, and a large data file appeared on their screens. It contained historical records of human conflicts throughout history, from ancient battles to modern warfare. "What good will history lessons do now?" Kate asked, puzzled. Ben was already scanning through the files. "These aren't just any battles. These are instances where human forces were severely outmatched but still won through unconventional tactics." The team spent the entire night studying the records. They saw how Hannibal had defeated the Romans at Cannae by allowing his center to be pushed back while his wings enveloped the enemy. They read about the Vietnamese using tunnel systems to neutralize American technological advantages. They studied guerrilla warfare, resistance movements, and asymmetric conflicts. "I see what Frank is showing us," Sam said finally. "We've been adapting our tactics for each match, but we're still thinking like modern military. We need to draw from our entire history." Susan looked at her team, a new plan forming. "The Krell have adapted to our recent strategies, but they can't possibly prepare for every type of warfare humans have ever developed." The 6th match would take place in a simulated urban environment, a sprawling city with buildings of various heights and sizes. As the teams prepared, Susan requested a meeting with the Galactic Council representatives. "Before we begin," she said to the assembled aliens, "I would like to explain something about humans that you may not understand." The aliens listened curiously as Susan spoke. "What makes humans different is that we've never stopped fighting ourselves. For thousands of years, we faced enemies who think exactly like we do, other humans. This forced us to constantly innovate our tactics and strategies." She displayed holographic images from Frank's files, ancient phalanxes, medieval cavalry charges, trench warfare, urban combat. Each era of human conflict produced new ways of fighting. We didn't discard the old methods, we incorporated them into our understanding of warfare. Warlord Vrax watched with narrowed eyes. "An interesting history lesson, Admiral Coleman. But how will this help you today?" Susan smiled. "You'll see." When the match began, the human team split up immediately. But instead of each person acting independently as before, they each adopted completely different fighting styles from different eras of human history. John moved like a Roman legionnaire, using tight formations and shield walls created from pieces of debris. When Krell forces approached, he advanced in a disciplined line, presenting a unified front that confused sensors used to detecting individual targets. Kate took control of a tall building and became a medieval archer, raining down suppressing fire from above to control key intersections. Her position seemed vulnerable, but when Krell warriors attempted to storm the building, they found every entrance booby-trapped with virtual explosives, a tactic from 20th century urban combat. Ben disappeared into the city's maintenance tunnels, emerging to strike at Krell supply lines and communications, guerrilla tactics that had worked for resistance fighters throughout human history. Sam coordinated them all, adapting ancient battle signals to direct movement without using electronic communications the Krell could intercept. And Susan herself led a direct assault on the Krell command post, using modern special forces tactics combined with the shock value of a medieval cavalry charge. The Krell response was confused and disjointed. Vrax had prepared counters for the human tactics from previous matches, but now faced fighting styles from a dozen different eras simultaneously. They fight as individuals, yet coordinate, Vrax observed with growing frustration. They use primitive tactics alongside modern ones. There is no logic to their approach. By the end of the match, the humans had secured a narrow victory. The score now stood at 4-2 in their favor. One more match remained, but Earth had clinched the series. As the simulation ended, Vrax approached Susan with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Congratulations, Admiral," he said. "Your species has earned its place in the Council." Susan nodded respectfully. "Thank you, Warlord." "But tell me," Vrax continued, "why did your Commander Miller send those historical records? What was he trying to show you?" Susan looked directly at the alien warlord. "That humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or even our adaptability. It's our memory. We remember every way we've ever fought, every trick we've ever used against ourselves. And we never forget." The final match was merely a formality. With the series already decided at 4-2, both teams approached it as a celebration of their skills rather than a desperate competition. The humans won again, but the victory felt different, respectful rather than triumphant. 3 days later, Earth was officially welcomed into the Galactic Council. The ceremony took place in the Great Hall of the Council ship, with representatives from hundreds of alien species in attendance. Admiral Susan Coleman led the human delegation, with her team standing proudly behind her. After the formal proceedings, Ambassador Zixtal approached Susan privately. "Your quarters in 1 hour," the crystal being said quietly. "There is more you should know." Susan exchanged glances with her team. What could the ambassador want now that the trials were complete? When Zixtal arrived at their quarters, the ambassador seemed different, less formal, more urgent. The crystalline body pulsed with deeper colors than Susan had seen before. "What I am about to tell you is not known to most council members," Zixtal began. "The trial by combat is not merely a test for membership." The human team listened intently as the ambassador continued. "The Galactic Council has existed for over 50,000 years. For most of that time, we have been at peace. No internal conflicts, no civil wars, no species fighting against itself. We figured that out," John said. "That's why the Krell were so predictable." Zixtal's body shimmered in acknowledgement. "Yes, but what you may not have realized is that peace has a price. We have forgotten how to truly wage war." The implications sank in slowly. Susan leaned forward. "Are you saying the Council is defenseless?" "Not entirely," Zixtal replied. "We have weapons. We have ships. But we lack the mindset of warriors. Our trials and competitions are pale shadows of ancient conflicts, preserved like museum pieces." Ben frowned. "Why tell us this now?" Zixtal's colors darkened. "Because the galaxy is changing. Our long-range scouts have detected a species at the edge of known space. They are not responding to peaceful overtures. They have already conquered 3 non-council worlds." Kate's eyes widened. "And they're coming this way?" "Yes," Zixtal confirmed. "Initial analysis suggests they evolved much like humans did, through constant conflict and competition. But they united their planet only recently and immediately turned their warlike nature outward." Frank, who had joined them for the ceremony, suddenly understood. You didn't invite Earth to join the council because we reached some technological threshold. No, Zixtal agreed. We invited you because we need you. The crystal being projected a holographic map of the galaxy. Hundreds of council worlds glowed blue, while a small cluster of red dots advanced slowly from the outer rim. The council races excel at many things: art, science, philosophy. We have built wonders beyond human imagination. But we cannot fight as you do. We cannot think as warriors anymore. Susan looked at her team, then back at the ambassador. What exactly are you asking of us? We want Earth to lead the Council's defense forces, Zixtal said simply. We want humans to teach us how to fight again, to remember what we have forgotten. Frank laughed softly. So that's the real reason humans have never lost a galactic war. You're recruiting us to win yours. Zixtal's colors pulsed in what might have been embarrassment. Is that not a fair exchange? We offer you technology, knowledge, and protection. You offer us your unique perspective on conflict. Susan considered the proposal carefully. It would mean a new role for humanity. Not just members of the galactic community, but its defenders. What about the Krell? John asked. I thought they were your warriors. The Krell are formidable, Zixtal acknowledged. But as you proved, they fight old wars in old ways. They cannot innovate as humans do. Susan stood, her decision made. We'll need to consult with Earth's governments, of course. But speaking personally, I believe we should accept. The Crystal Ambassador's colors brightened with relief. Then there is hope. With humans fighting alongside us, perhaps the Council will survive what is coming. As Zixtal left, the human team gathered around the galactic map. The red dots seemed so small against the vast blue expanse of Council space, but Susan knew appearances could be deceiving. So, Kate said, breaking the silence. From trial participants to galactic defenders in less than a month. That's quite a promotion. Frank smiled. It makes a strange kind of sense. Humans have spent thousands of years learning how to fight. Maybe now we can use that knowledge to preserve peace instead of disrupting it. Susan nodded, still studying the map. Humanity's violent history had prepared them for this moment in ways no one could have predicted. Their greatest weakness had become their greatest strength. The real reason humans have never lost a galactic war, she said quietly, is that we understand something the peaceful races forgot long ago. What's that? Ben asked. Susan looked up at her team, her expression serious. That peace is something you must be willing to fight for.